Welcome everybody to today's webinar from Unify, which is all about the PLG Playbook and really how two of our amazing customers here at Gumloop and Navattic are turning product signals into revenue. I think if you're anywhere in the tech or adjacent spaces, you've seen PLG is one of the hottest topics out there, and most of the fastest growing companies like Cursor, like Perplexity, a lot of the AI tools you're seeing today are leveraging product-led motion to drive that exponential growth. So today we're going to be talking about how some other leaders in the PLG space at Gumloop and Navattic are leveraging product signals to turn that into revenue in for their businesses. So with that in mind, I'm Quintin. I am our product marketing lead here at Unify, and I'm really grateful to be joined by two of the brightest minds in growth and go-to-market engineering with Jay and Dima here. So Dima, maybe you kick us off, a little intro about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Quintin. Hey, everybody. My name is Dima. I'm a go-to-market engineer here at Gumloop. Gumloop is an AI automation platform. We just recently raised our Series B from Benchmark, and we're servicing customers like DoorDash, Ramp, Gusto, and many, many more. And I'll show you in a moment, but the idea is building automations now is a lot easier than it was before.
Better to see more of it. Jay, how about yourself?
All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Jay. I'm a growth lead at Navattic. I'm coming up on 6 months in my role, so my pitch is maybe not as refined as Dima's is. But Navattic, we power those interactive demos, product tours that you might see on other people's websites. Got customers like Ramp and Unify as well. But yeah, excited to chat here and talk about some of the PLG plays that we're running.
Awesome. Yeah, really looking forward to the chat and appreciate you guys hopping in. I know you kind of hinted at it lightly, but would love to hear a little bit more about, obviously you've mentioned what Navattic and Gumloop do, but maybe talk a little bit more about your business model, like how you think about, like PLG versus like a hybrid sales-led motion and what that kind of looks like for you today.
Yeah.
Jay, maybe we'll start with you.
Yeah. So at Navattic, we have a hybrid model. So we've got a PLG function and then sales-led model as well. So we have like AEs that are closing deals. The way I kind of think about it is, and especially in my role as a growth lead, I've got two kind of jobs and two roles to do over here. One is get as many self-serve in-app upgrades as possible. Those are really great because obviously we don't need sales help sometimes. And then the other thing that we're working on and kind of like pushing towards is, not everyone's going to self-serve, but if they are doing any sort of high intent activities within the product, let's make sure, and they do qualify in our ICP, let's make sure and flag those to sales. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. One is like, how can we make sure and better convert these people in the product? And two is, how can we also just make sure that we pass over the most high intent leads over to sales?
That's great. And yeah, I think that's what a lot of like this motion has become in this hybrid world where folks are wanting to try it before they buy it. Like there needs to be like this natural earlier stage conversations where people want to tinker, they want to learn these tools, and then you can bring the sales team later on. Dima, would love to hear kind of more about how Gumloop is approaching this, what that business model looks like on your end.
Yeah, I think our approach is actually quite interesting just because we don't have like any seats limits, we don't have any limits. Essentially, it's just purely usage based. And so our approach now, I would say, is a hybrid approach, but we changed it, I would say, about like 4 months ago, maybe, yeah, about 4 months ago, maybe 5 months ago. And initially, like Gumloop, we're a really lean team, it's like 20 something of us for the size and like for the volume of signups and leads that are incoming. And so essentially it's impossible to do a full sales process on everybody. But we noticed that companies above a certain size, let's say above 100 people, above 500 people, they experience that pain of operational inefficiencies the most, and they need some sort of like push sometimes, to help them go through like an IT and security review, or just to bring more stakeholders, to the table, show maybe a demo to some higher ups. And so essentially now we have that motion a little bit divided where we have like PLG growth motion separate with everything that we do just in regard to like refining the product, refining the onboarding experience, all the marketing activities associated with it, and just in general the brand and like perception of the brand. And there is a sales process where we have like different plays in Unify, and when we do the actual sales process where we tier people, based on like the company size and some other parameters to essentially in three buckets with like tier one, tier two, tier three, and like tier three is like fully automated, tier two is semi-automated, tier one is like fully manual with just like some templates in places. And so I would say that that approach actually worked, I think, for us the best, just because, you can focus your time and effort on like one narrow target. And then you can see that like before and after effect, just because you're so concentrated on something specific. And so now, essentially, after we kind of divided these two things, I would say that, people who are responsible for the sales process, they just work with the right leads. They're pre-qualified. They know what to do. They have tasks in Unify, and so they just go and working on them. And the product-led growth motion is just like a separate kind of thing.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And I feel like there's a lot of like blurring of these lines as it's come over the past
Of course.
couple of years as this has continued to evolve. And there's no like perfect recipe, but having that everyday access and really being able to run sales to take advantage of the PLD motion is key there. I'm going to launch a quick poll for our audience here. Kind of want to understand where people are coming from. So you should see that pop up on your end, but oh, that's actually the wrong poll. But we'll do both of them here on this end. One is folks who have deployed product signals to inform outbound in any way. So looks like a good two-thirds of our audience has, which is great to see. And this is like a big focus of what we're doing today. I'm sure by all of you attending this, you're probably on the cutting edge of all of this, but there's always new, interesting ways to kind of leverage product signal adoption here. The second question I want to ask for the group is launching around how do we think about, and looks like I'm disabled from launching, but oh, I can end the poll here. All right. The second thing is what kind of go-to-market motion are you all running today? Is that more of a product-led, sales-led, or a hybrid motion, as we kind of talked about? So, yeah, I think the hybrid has become kind of the default for a lot of businesses today. So, as folks, PLG has almost become this new inbound marketing motion, while sales kind of drapes on top of that for the businesses. Cool. Seems like we have a good mix here. Despite it being a PLG webinar, most folks are landing in that hybrid bucket. All right. So moving on to kind of our next topic, I want to ask you guys, how do you think about like which product signals that are happening within your product? How do you kind of analyze, understand what might be worth actioning on from a sales or even just like an automated outbound perspective? Jay, maybe we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, so I think it depends where you are in your like play building cycle. I'll start at like the earliest stage, which is like maybe you have nothing set up. The way I kind of think about it is what are the one or two key actions that you're trying to get people to take in your product, and then creating actions around that or plays around that. This is exactly kind of what we do in Unify. So for instance, when people are running into paywalls, we're running a play to flag those accounts to the record owner, the contact owner in Slack. If someone is doing an activity multiple times, like a key activity, like for us, like we want to see, those free self-serve signups publish and republish their demo because that shows, hey, they're active, they're making edits, they're trying to like get this thing live. So those are the things that we want to kind of flag, like has someone done this multiple times? Let's flag that to sales, especially if it qualifies in our ICP, makes sense. Those are some really good accounts to kind of just flag, especially, not all of those are gonna book a demo and kind of like raise their hand, but if we can kind of catch them in that process and then maybe even provide some assistance and guidance to help them have a better experience in the product, for us, like I'd say we have like maybe like a medium level complexity in the sense it's really easy for users to get started in the product and install our Chrome extension and start capturing their product and setting up their demo. But we want to make sure they're following like best practices so that way they can get really good results when their demo is live. So if we can kind of flag those accounts to sales and maybe work with them, kind of understand a little bit more what their goals are. We are capturing some of that in the onboarding experience, but if we can understand that a little bit more, maybe we can kind of guide them and make sure they're having like the best experience as during their like free period that they're kind of like testing the product. So that's kind of how I think about it is, to kind of sum up, identify those one or two main things that you're trying to get your users to do. And once they hit those milestones, can you like flag those to your sales team?
That's great. Thanks for that, Jay. Dima, how about on your end? How do you think about which type of signals are going to be the most compelling to drive run outbound plays around?
It is a good question. And like the thing is, I do feel like we just in general, people like to overthink things. And like there are some simple 0 to 1 things that you can implement and you will see results right away. Even like outreach into people post sign up who qualify for your sales motion. I feel like that's probably the best unlock and like the biggest unlock you can have. Just because then, you're going to be consistent. I feel like, what we actually like is more of like a consistency. Even if you would be outreaching to someone, like flagged manually in a Slack or something, like you will maybe send one email, but usually it takes like a couple of follow-ups for people to actually find some time to like chat with you or book a time with you or whatever. So I think you know, sometimes like when it's simple, it's the best. So like the best possible probably thing you can do is like very well-defined tiers or whatever that you're targeting and just outreaching, qualified signups, right? Then I would say from our perspective, we do have like, tools that you connect into and like there is a bucket of tools. There's going to be like business related tools like CRM, Salesforce, HubSpot, Attio, and so on and so forth, right? You would have like Apollo, you would have like, a different, more business related things. Then we'll have like more marketing related things, related to, Google Ads or any other social media marketing platforms, and maybe some other more of like operational things. So we want to prioritize like some of the tools, and we also want to build a messaging around like your role and like around like the tools that you're using, the work that you're about to automate with Gumloop. So that's an important thing for us. And yeah, and probably just some basic things when like you've been inactive for some time and then you logged in again in like 30 days or whatever. Or there are some signals that really kind of hard to nail. But for example, if we had power users and they switched jobs and now they're in a new workspace and they're trying out Gumloop, like even with like a free package or whatever, we want to know that we can approach them and they will be more excited. They can champion us in the new org. So it's like I would say it goes from like the very simple one to the very kind of like advanced and hard to get ones. But I do think that it's like a bad idea to overthink signals and like it's always a good idea just to implement whatever first, come to mind and then iterate, more and more over different plays or sequences or whatever.
Makes a ton of sense. I like to think of this as like you're building like layered context about your users and potential buyers, right? Like if
Yep.
they've connected to the CRM, what persona they are, like if they've completed these certain milestones. This is all building towards what you can use to both like activate those signals, but also the messaging that you're going to be applying to them, which makes what you're doing so much more powerful. So I figured
100%.
that.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think one of the most exciting parts is that today we're going to spend some time actually seeing how you guys take advantage of this, both kind of within your products as well as what you're doing with those in Unify. So, Jay, I might start with you again here, but would you mind maybe diving in to both your kind of Navattic instance as well as showing how you're taking advantage of those signals in Unify?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share my screen over here and we can maybe look through some plays. Um, cool. So we've got some different plays. These are very like more basic plays that I'm gonna kind of walk through. I agree with Dima, just like starting small and then like iterating is so important. I think one thing that I always think about as one kind of talk with other growth people around is like the maintenance of it. You want to make sure that the plays that you do build out, you're actually able to maintain and iterate over time versus like it's really easy to spin out things today, but it's much more difficult to actually maintain them long term. So just something to kind of caveat over there. So here are some plays that we kind of run from product signals specifically. I'll dive into this one actually, which I think is pretty applicable to most people over here. This is like a play that we run basically when someone hits an upgrade alert 5+ times. So we want to flag that to the sales rep. So we've got each sales rep for us has their own Slack channel set up. We're actually going to be switching this soon to dedicated Slack channels per these different signals. So that way we don't have to do any sort of crazy branching and we can kind of make this even a little bit more simple than that, especially with Unify's like tag record owner thing in Slack. So yeah, super easy. We're basically just kind of firing off of, has someone done this 5 or more times? I've got this set to the last 1 year, and that's because we kind of use that as a filter in post hog actually to create like our different cohorts based off of like, has someone hit this 2+ times, 3+ times, 4+ times, 5+ times? And then we kind of look at those cohorts and see which ones are converting at like 10 or more percent. And then that's how we kind of decide that we want to go ahead and build this like play out in Unify essentially. So those are some things that we're doing over there. This one I also love. I think Dima touched about this a little bit. Maybe he's going to show his as well, which is our close loss return a nap. I love this play. We just launched this one recently. So we're also kind of eventually we might spin up some sort of automated sequence around this. Right now we're just really like flagging our sales team because we kind of want to I want to understand from our sales team. And this is a really good way to like test some of these signals early on before you build out the sequences is like, is this actually a useful sequence? Like you're getting these notifications, you're reaching out. Are these things that are any of these that are like, hey, this one's like a money signal. Like let's go ahead and like create like a sequence around it later on once we kind of validate that. So that's what we're kind of doing. This one's really awesome. We basically just run against like closed lost and then like have they basically like come back. So that's kind of like the sequence that we have that's set up over there. Super easy to kind of execute. And basically we run it if they haven't had any sales activity in the last 90 days and someone from that company ends up either A, signing back in or creating a new account, we're flagging that to our sales team. So that's one that I really love as well. We're about to launch this one also over here. I love this one. So we're using it basically off of people like doing a Navattic like demo. So we've got our Navattic JS installed on our website that's available like with using Navattic. So we can run a custom event basically anytime someone has started a demo in like recently, essentially, we're able to create like an audience for this in Unify and then run a play. Basically, since we don't necessarily know exactly who the person is, we can kind of qualify, is that company a SaaS company? And then we can go find people that match our persona that may have been the one to interact with that demo and then go ahead and prospect them. So that one's really good. And we're also working on some other stuff around product-led signals. So I think nowadays it's pretty easy to enrich your signups and find things around like employee information, maybe some sort of like tech stack. But we want to take it a step further with like Unify agents. And so I love this one that we're kind of using this on a sequence right now. But we're basically like finding out, do they have an existing demo on their website? Who is that company, that vendor, if that's there? And then we can start flagging these to sales as well, right? So we can work on building out a flow or a play where, lead comes in, we figure out, do they have a demo on their website already? If yes, and this is the competitor vendor, let's go ahead and flag that to the sales team. And like I mentioned, like, the signals that we kind of validate with sales as being good, then we can work on building automated sequences in the future.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Jay. It's great to see that. And like that agent application is huge. I think there's just so much flexibility in what you can create. So it's great to see you guys using that for identifying those interactive demos. Dima, would love to kind of see what you've cooked up for the Gumloop team on this front.
Sure. I let me maybe share the onboarding process first, just to kind of like preview, the actual things that we are showing people during the onboarding, and then like I'll show the plays that we're running on top of it. Just a second. Let me put it around. Okay, so essentially, when people are signing up for the first time, they're going through like a very curated onboarding experience, just to like kind of preview like the agent building process and how it works and all that. And what we're doing here is we're capturing all that in post hoc, of course, and let's say sales. And after that, we can use that information in the unified place, right? When we're targeting, for example, different roles, when we're targeting different tools, when we're targeting different use cases. But also, I'll just connect all of them. uh, but also, okay, now it's good. But also, here's the idea, like we do have a separation. If you finish an onboarding, then we kind of like expect you to reply to our outreach, in even like a high reply rate. And if you haven't finished an onboarding, that's going to be like a different route that we're going to take. So this is like a first probably a thing that we're going to do right away to, essentially give that whole play a differentiation. But after you onboard it, let me show you the actual unified play right now. Okay. Uh, just a moment. Okay, so in the Unify, we essentially have it. Well, I essentially have like the basic version of the play and the more advanced version of the play. And the basic version of the play is actually going to be just the record that is triggering the record that is triggered by the onboarding flow that we are collecting with the post hoc. We have all of the exclusions that we want to apply to it. If it's like not, an existing customer, or for example, this is not like an open opportunity, because there's going to be like a different play for the open opportunity, because we want like our success team to contact them and help them in kind of like spreading the Gumloop within the org if they're doing already a pilot, for example, right? Then we're doing the qualification with an agent. We're essentially prospecting people with the sequence, and then we alert, about the results of that in a Slack for the sales team, and we're associating the contact owner with the Slack message so they can get an actual ping. But this is like a basic version that we're using. We also have a more kind of like advanced version and the tiered version. And essentially, the idea of the tiers is that tier one is going to be more manual, meaning we'll have more manual steps in Unify. And then, like, essentially, GTM team, they'll have like, a manual email. Maybe they want to refine something just because there's going to be like a link between our head of sales or like our founders and that individual. Something that they can mention in the email that is not obvious and that is like just impossible to gather with like an AI agent and a web search. Or like tier two is going to be semi-automated, right? Where we have like automated emails, but for example, LinkedIn steps are going to be manual. So we want just to, diversify in that way. And like tier three, these folks are going to have like a fully automated sequence. And that's kind of like the idea. And in here, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to match the criteria, essentially the same thing, with triggering when the people are finishing the onboarding, and we're passing some parameters that we want to use later on. For example, if we have any tools or like we have any role associated with it, then we qualify that prospect with an agent. And if it's not qualified, we're essentially getting the company of that individual and we're prospecting for the new people. And then essentially we can sequence on them. We're not doing the here, but the idea is that after we found the decision maker on the team, we can name drop that individual and be like, hey, Quintin signed up recently, so I thought I would reach out and we can like do a proper demo. I would love to show you, and I would love to hear, your ideas, but you have some ideas, for the automations, right? If the prospect is qualified, then we just enroll in that prospect in a sequence. we're sending the alert to the Slack and we're tagging the salesperson assigned to that record that we have in the Salesforce. And there's going to be like an owner of that record. So we're just going to attribute them. And then we have an if-else condition here. And essentially the idea of that condition, if that individual was enrolled in a sequence and haven't replied after 7 days, we can actually source more people from that company. We can prospect to like 10 more people within the company who are like maybe a level above, or maybe, a teammates of that individual. And we can enroll them in a sequence that will essentially name drop again that individual. And this is how we can make it a lot more personalized. So in our opinion, like the timing is the key. And when they just like recently try out Gumloop, they're excited about the platform and they are like, they're probably in the best state possible to try to chat with them. So I do think that timing gonna beat messaging, like, at every level. And here the idea is our message is gonna be like very simple. We'll probably just personalize based on the role, and we'll be like, GTM teams are using Gumloop for this and that, or like marketing teams are using Gumloop for this and that. And we can name drop people. And if you name drop people, in my opinion, then it's like a different level of personalization, just because you can't really source that information from the internet. And there is like a little bit of, like outreach fatigue on the market, just because with all of the like AI SDR tools out there, people are getting like extreme volume of these emails. And so essentially our goal here is to keep like messaging very short and concise and personalized in the non-obvious ways. So I would say that's like a priority for us with like the place that we've built.
I love that, Dima. I think that's like one of the things we're seeing as well is like there's still a level of customization, personalization, and touch that's like necessary today because cold
Yeah.
email just isn't going to be as effective if you're not dropping the actions they're taking if they don't have like some sort of relevancy there. So makes a ton of sense. Thanks for sharing that. I have
100%.
one last question, and then we're going to stay a couple minutes for Q&A. If folks feel free to drop those in while we're chatting here. For both of you guys, Jay, we'll start with you. What are you thinking about going forward when it comes to product signals? How you do see Navattic like evolving on this front from a PLG standpoint?
Yeah. For us, we want to do a couple things. I think one is running more plays in Unify once as we continue to get a better understanding of what our higher converting cohorts are. So, we have some right now. We're kind of doing a little bit more investigation over there. So continuing to kind of flag those accounts that come up. And the second thing is just really continue to experiment with the plays that we have and with even just our product. We're actively kind of running through different experiments, changing that product experience because we do have that free plan and we want to make sure people are getting value out of the product over there. So I can kind of envision us continuing to want to run different experiments, different plays on some of the things that we're testing to kind of flag. So those are some of the things over there that we're really thinking about. We just want to be able to kind of, I think to Dima's point, provide like that personalized experience for people that are coming in and make sure we're not missing opportunities to open up conversations. Not everyone that comes into a free plan is going to raise their hand that I want to talk to you. So it's important for us to, one, either flag those accounts or either to sequence those accounts so that way we can kind of get in front of them and kind of get them to activate and reply and engage with us.
Love that. Thanks, Jay. How about Dima on your side for Gumloop?
You know what? Actually, I do think that what we're focusing on right now, it's enhancing the like inbound led outbound with the signal-based outreach, like with the signal-based outbound. So essentially what we've noticed, for example, if the prospect recently viewed a profile of like the founder or the profile of the company or engaged with the content that we're doing, they're like, they have Gumloop top of mind. And so essentially that's the best time in to reach out to them. And so we're trying to combine both of these approaches without like being too, pushy, but at the same time with just reaching out at the right time. And essentially what we found is that we can keep like 10 to 12% reply rates if we can like essentially action on the LinkedIn based signals and keeping like the inbound led outbound flows. So even like combining them in a way where we've sent like the outreach to the person who signed up, and even if they didn't reply, it's going to be like 3 emails, right, or something like that. We might send them like a LinkedIn invite. But then, for example, in a month or like in some reasonable amount of time, like 20 days or 30 days, if we have that signal from the LinkedIn, for example, that they engaged with the post, we'll just kick off like a new sequence on them. That's going to be more of a LinkedIn based, that's going to be name dropping that, hey, we've seen, we've seen that you, check us out on LinkedIn or something like something that not reference the exact post because that's creepy, but something that's gonna be like non-invasive and like very like small touch. And again, we found that is like a lot more effective than just like trying to cold outreach them without any prior, without any prior brand awareness. And so I think the approach that we are focusing on right now essentially is just to manufacture more of these signals with like employee generated content, with executive generated content, and then attaching all of the like, plays to these signals. Because again, like my belief here is that signal-based outreach going to be more like timely. It's going to be just way better than the cold outreach. So I think like those two approaches, they work together really well. And like in Unify, you can have LinkedIn signals, no problem. You can have all of these steps incorporated. So essentially, this is something that we found like really successful, especially with like more senior titles.
That's great. That's great, Dima. And I think that's going to be a good like exploration for you guys going forward and kind of capitalizing on the success you're already having. I know we're a few minutes over, but if folks have questions, feel free to drop those in the chat. I'm going to pull up a slide here as well. Second. But the first question I saw that came in a little bit earlier, and we talked about this a lot, but how do you both think about like adapting your PLG approach when it comes to self-serve versus sales assist self-serve?
I think we actually like I don't think it's really that hard. Meaning that like you're gonna work on your PLG motion no matter what. Like I don't think these are like so mingled, right? So like you're gonna have your sales approach. Like for the sales approach, I do think that you need to qualify because like sales process takes time. Takes time. Like take your GTM team's time. Take the resources and all that. So just in a way like you need to make sure that people who are you reaching out to and you want to engage them in the sales process will actually be able to cover the whole sales process and pay you a lot more than like probably some of the PLG folks. So I do think that what you mentioned, Quintin, in the beginning, we've seen PLG now and like signups and all that more of like a lead magnet for like the bigger deals, just because the bigger deals they actually involve like a lot of stakeholders. They involve like a reviewing process, making sure that like everything is good with the compliance side of things. Just because with the bigger companies, it is as this. It's going to be like a longer sales process, but it's also like a higher ACV, right? So that's kind of like the whole idea. So in my opinion, again, in here, you just need to make sure that you work with folks who qualify for like PLG for now, and they might graduate into like the sales led process a little bit later on. So you just need to make sure that you essentially focusing on the right like cohorts of people for both of the things when it's like a hybrid motion.
Yeah,
Love
I,
that.
I think my answer would be, you want to just continue to keep working and experimenting from the PLG side, working and experimenting with your product to get more people to convert or kind of raise their hands via product signal. Like that's like ultimately what you should kind of be working through. And then as you kind of have those people move to and mature into those higher converting cohorts, you want to get them to be able to take that right action, right? Whether it's that self-serve upgrade or kind of flagging to sales. And that's kind of how we think about it from our PLG motion in terms of like what we're doing outside of Unify to kind of get people there is, we've identified what our high converting cohorts are in post hog, which are the groups that are which are like the product actions and signals that are going to create like convert at 10% or more essentially. And then can we experiment, get people into those cohorts through the product, and as they kind of mature and get into those cohorts, flagging them to sales team. So I don't think there's anything really kind of like separate we're doing. I think for us, something that is really interesting and we're kind of continuing to think about as well is like also, not everyone that signs up through your free plan is going to be qualified in the sense of A, maybe they're not the right company that you're kind of going after, or B, maybe they're not the right like target that you're going after, right? Maybe, you're targeting C-suite CMOs or head of marketings or something like that that have more buying power and maybe the content marketing person signed up and doesn't have the buying power for that. So once you get that account, can you kind of find who that right stakeholder is, reach out, have that relevance? So those are some kind of things that we're thinking about in terms of how those pieces kind of play together.
Makes a ton of sense. Thanks, Jay. And great to hear kind of how different motions think about these different, as there's no perfect recipe here, but I think these are great approaches. I saw one question come in on what's a good number for positive reply rates. I'm happy to take this one. We're digging into this data on our side here. It's like the most unfortunate answer. It depends is kind of the best answer I can give here. And oftentimes, like what we're seeing is that signal or positive reply rate really is determined by the type of signal that you're using, especially in this continues to go up as you start to combine and layer signals. On like a more standard front, you can see anywhere from like 0.2 to 1% of positive replies, as on more of a standard just replies, 1 to 3% is more standard. But what I will say is from what we've seen in the data, is for product signals specifically, the reply rate can be like 4x higher than a typical positive reply rate. Obviously, these are folks that are your warmest accounts at the end of the day, and that they're going to be the most likely ones to actually go out and convert. So, Bruno, for that great question, like really depends. But if you're leveraging product signals, you're going to expect that the positive reply rate is going to convert much higher. Awesome. Are there any other questions on the line? While we wait for those to come in, just dropping in front of folks, we have some great products and teams in front of us. So if anyone's interested to try out Gumloop, you can use the code Unify, I think for a free month, Dima. Correct me if I'm wrong
Yeah,
there.
it's going to be a free month of Pro.
Bro, I love to see that. As well as you can check out Navattic. I'm a longtime Navattic user, so a big fan of the platform. I've had it for any of my fellow product or growth marketers. It's an amazing tool, as well as Unify if you are thinking about leveraging your product signals into your actually outbound plays. All right. Looks like I'm not seeing any more questions here, team. And if you stayed with us all 10 minutes over, we really appreciate it. You are some of the leaders in PLG, so it's great to see. But awesome. We will wrap for the day. But Jay, Dima, thank you so much for spending your time sharing a bit of what you're doing. You guys are doing amazing things, and it's really great to see. So appreciate you being here.
Thanks very much, Quintin. I appreciate you inviting us.
Yeah, thanks, Quintin. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.